Hello and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was, a weekly program where you get to catch up with the news headlines of the week. And to discuss this week's headlines from the 20th of January to 27th of January, we have with us the group editor of Herald Publication, Mr. Sujay Gupta. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This week we pick up the dominant themes from the newspaper, People's Newspaper, the Herald. In the first news headline, we also pick up the dominant headline which has been in the newspapers throughout the week, and that is the last minute Christmas shopping for candidates and choosing them over those who are party cadres and who have been with the party or party loyalist. Now I'll just read a paragraph from the Herald where it says, the saga of political jumping jacks, changing parties faster than changing their inner clothes, or those leaving one party and joining another party the same day and getting a ticket within a few minutes, continues.
Yes, these were indeed our words, and every word of this is true and self-explanatory. It does happen as if political parties are literally waiting behind the bushes of other political parties, and as soon as a candidate's name is announced for one particular constituency, you will have two other or three other disgruntled people who are probably promised tickets and who don't get it. And as soon as this happens, the other rival party goes and immediately makes a beeline for those candidates, and most of the time the candidates are also willing. It's not as if there is one suitor and there is another person who's doesn't want to get wooed. So both sides are absolutely happy. The suitors are happy, the people who are getting wooed, which is the candidates, they're happy. They within minutes jump into other parties, they get inducted into other parties, they get the shawl and the flag of one party in one hand and the party ticket in another hand. It is almost like this. Somebody who was a front runner for a particular party candidate in the morning becomes a candidate for another party by the evening. That is happening. What has actually happened is, and this is something I was discussing with other political observers this morning itself, the political DNA of Goa has been such, and this is a malaise that affects every political party, that the political DNA of Goa is such that there is nothing called a party or a party ideology. There are just political people who park themselves in certain parking lots which happen to be political parties. When their job is over, they move out of that parking lot and drive to another parking lot. So political parties have just become parking lots for politicians to come and park themselves. They are no longer parties. There is nothing called ideology, there is nothing called vision, there is nothing called, which is why parties do not invest in building organizations, because they know come elections, all they have to do is to do this last minute Christmas shopping, as you put it and we put it, and just get candidates and put those candidates as their party candidates and somehow field them. Win as many seats as possible. If you win less seats, all you need to do is have a few MLAs who will ultimately go and attach themselves to the largest party and be a part of government and become a minister. This is the route that has happened, and unfortunately this is totally antithetical to what the spirit of the constitution and the spirit of the democratic process.
In this season where the filing of nominations has been predominant during this week, on 21st of January we have candidates from the BJP's list, where 5 of the 34 who were declared, 5 of them have serious non-bailable criminal cases against them. And this adds up to about nearly 15% of the candidates that were announced out of 34. And political parties have persisted with fielding candidates who have had criminal record, and this is not only true of the BJP but it's also true of the other political parties.
Yes, I know political parties say that these criminal charges are politically motivated and so on, but I would say this whole excuse of they being politically motivated, that excuse has run its course, because there are many politicians who've committed acts which need not necessarily be linked to their political activity. For instance, if you are caught in a case of a rape or alleged rape, that has nothing to do with the person being in politics. Now, if there is evidence and there is a charge sheet and there is evidence, there is a statement by people who claim that, who allege that they've been molested or raped and other things. You cannot for every case turn around and say that these are, why is it that there are only some political people who get these kind of criminal cases attached to their names and others don't? Why would in that case a political vendetta be targeted only at A politician or B politician? A person with a criminal record, you will see that the person has got a series of criminal records and charges along the years. But it is very difficult to believe that if it is politically motivated, why would just one person be targeted as a criminal and somebody else not? So you cannot have smoke without fire in these cases.
On 22nd of January, the Herald has this headline, very cleverly put, Parrikar quits the BJP, Parsekar to resign today. And then on 26th, we have Datta Prasad Naik and all these people leaving the BJP, some of them like Lakshmikant Parsekar being the founder members of the party. I'll just quote what Utpal Parrikar had to say. He says, "Time has come for me to stand up for the values that were espoused by my late father Manohar Parrikar." And he also says that I am giving an honest and educated choice to the people of Goa.
See, one wouldn't. I wouldn't like to go completely into the merits or the demerits of what Utpal said. I'd like to look at a larger issue, that in a constituency like Panjim or any other constituency, there are clear choices before the people. Would they vote for somebody who's a regional satrap and a non-aligned political force who will go to any political party at any point of time, who's had criminal charges and who's controversial, but at the same time he has a voter base which believes in him and they feel that he's done much for the development of the constituency and for the people. So you have one choice. The other choice is a person who's not tried nor tested, but comes from a family that is perceived to be clean, honest, perceived to be clean and honest, and whose the patriarch of that family, who's been a former chief minister and who's left a legacy behind. This is what that family claims, or the supporters of that family claim. So you have two clear choices. Now it is entirely up to the people of Panjim in this particular case to decide which path they want to take, and let them make that choice. There's no problem at all. Okay. But the point here is that even a party like the BJP, which calls itself as a party with difference, obviously now is a party with differences. That is very clearly visible. That it is very clear that it is not just Utpal, but there are different people who claim that the party is not what it is. If this was happening in the Congress, one would say, okay, this goes on happening in the Congress. But when it happens in the BJP, one should sit up and introspect, because Lakshmikant Parsekar clearly took the name of Dhond without taking his name, but he mentioned Dhond. Satish Dhond, who happens to be the
Organization Secretary.
Not really the organizer that we know. What we don't know is that he's the man who controls all the levers of the BJP. So obviously the fact remains that there are different cases. But if you see the peeve that these old timers have is the people who are getting tickets in place of those old timers are not people who have been with the party through thick and thin. They're essentially defectors. Dayanand Sopte, he may have come to the people and won on the BJP ticket, but he's essentially a defector. Babush Monserrat is essentially a defector because he's come from different parties. So the people within the BJP are naturally upset that people who come from other parties and who defected and moved into the party, they are given more preference than us. And that's a very valid reason to get upset.
On 23rd of January, the Herald has this story about the 16 MLAs who changed sides in 5 months, and at that point of time we had said that it is not over yet. Now if we go a little bit into 2017, from that day till today About 31 MLAs have changed sides. If we consider Vishwajit Rane, Dayanand Sopte, the 10 MLAs plus the 2 MGP. So it amounts to about 77% of the people in this assembly have changed sides. Only 9 MLAs have not changed sides.
Yeah, Freddie, since it was your story and you researched it and wrote it, you obviously would, you obviously know what the situation is, and the fact that it's such a high figure of MLAs moving, it just only goes on to reiterate what I earlier said in this program, where there is nothing called ideology. Parties are just parking lots, and they ultimately go to whoever is willing to give them a ticket and back them. Why do they need a party? They need a party because they need the party basically for funds and for some kind of a support. And they need a party because they think that if that party is in a position to form the government, they will be one of the MLAs and they'll get a shot at power. They'll either get a chairmanship of a corporation or they'll get a ministership. So it is the relationship between the party and the party person has become totally transactional. It is not ideological. Yeah. It is a transaction. It is a deal between two people. So as long as the deal is over, it's over. And even when you join a party, it's an open-ended contract that you're not supposed to break it. Yeah. But it is very short-lived.
Also, this what has happened is basically Goa was basically a bi-party kind of system, and the differences in the earlier stages were very sharp between the parties, like merger, non-merger, or Congress, which was for statehood, and MGP, which was still carrying the burden of merger and Marathi and all that stuff. But now it appears that even with the BJP earlier coming with this nationalistic agenda, Hindutva agenda, but even these boundaries between the political parties like the Congress and the BJP.
That's a good point. See, if you see this election, okay, and ask anybody who's got half an interest in Goa and its future and in the political milieu. If you look at any political party, can you honestly pinpoint one particular issue that this party stands for and is going to the polls with? What is BJP going to the polls with? What is Congress going to the polls with? In the sense that what is the Congress going to the polls with in terms of what they stand for and what they will give, not what they are objecting to. So it's all about what is the Congress going to the polls with? What is the AAP going to the polls with fundamentally? One issue. What is the TMC going to the polls with? What is the NCP going to the polls with? Let us ask each of these parties down the line as to what is the fundamental issue that you are going with. And defeating the BJP cannot be your agenda. You don't go to the polls to defeat a political party. Yeah. That can be a fallout of your good intentions and good policies. You go to the polls with something that you're offering to the people.
Okay, and on many occasions you see basically parties are reactive. They are reacting to double tracking, they are reacting to coal, but they don't basically have an agenda of their own. There is no thesis as such.
See, again, the opposition to coal was nobody's agenda. Because if that was the case, the Congress could have raised it for so many years. It became a people's agenda. The people's organizations and NGOs raised it. People's newspapers and publications like ours supported it, and it became a huge issue. Political parties realized, hey, this can be a vote-catching issue, and they all jumped onto it when they realized that there is people's support to this particular issue. So they have come into it with a purpose that it's a people's issue. Let's latch onto it. So that's it. It's all about parties hitching onto issues. And none of them are original issues of the party.
Okay, on 25th of January, we have this news about a long drawn out protest that Old Goa Panchayat is moving to demolish the house project, the illegal project that was there in Old Goa. And we have the Say Old Goa Panchayat sending out a show cause notice. And meanwhile, the proprietors of the project have changed. There is Sumiral Jain of Mumbai based Corvus Urban Infrastructure LLP. So then there is a timeline which Herald has carried about how this notice for demolition has come to be.
Okay, now this is an old story we've been following up. To those who are uninitiated, it's all about a building which is coming up in the heritage precincts next to the St. Cajetan Church, And after a long drawn out agitation, finally we've come to a stage where demolition orders have not been issued, but a show cause notice has been issued. I think it's all going in the right direction. I think it's better late than never that that the government steps in and decides to do away with this whole monstrosity. But the caveat that I have here is, let us see the demolition order and the demolition exercise take place. Because right now, before elections, the government is also kind of buying time and saying the right things to pacify people. Otherwise, there will be a huge agitation. Let us see what happens after the elections. Whether the government of the day carries this forward and actually does the demolition. Because there's a huge gap between show cause notice, demolition order and actual demolition. Because as soon as the demolition order is given, the parties will immediately go to court against the demolition order and take a stay on the demolition. At each stage, in the lower court, high court, Supreme Court, you give it 5 years. So for the next 15 to 20 years, it is quite possible, if they play their legal cards well, they may not be able to construct the building and give it over, but they will be able to stall demolition if they play their legal cards.
And on January 26, we have some very good news that a Goan footballer, international footballer, and Arjuna awardee Brahmanan Sankwalkar wins the Padma Shri. Long deserved, and he has an illustrious report card where Brahmanan has won every major trophy in football as the international goalkeeper that he was when he retired. He has in his cap the Bandodkar Gold Cup, he has the Federation Cup, the Rovers Cup, and back-to-back victories in Santosh Trophy. Long deserved. And also there is Brahmanan and Brahmeshwar Swami, both of them have won the
The Brahmeshwar Swami is the Swami of Portugal.
He is from this Topobhumi.
Sorry, the Tapobhumi Brahmeshwar. Okay, so issue is I unfortunately don't have as much knowledge about the Brahmeshwar Swami of the Topobhumi, except for the fact that he's a very well-known religious figure, and so I'm sure the government of the day must have seen a lot of merit in awarding him this high civilian award. As far as Brahmanand is concerned, he is not only a jewel of Goa, he is truly one of the finest jewels of this country across all disciplines. There is no doubt. Brahmanand has, apart from being a fine goalkeeper, he's been a fantastic ambassador for sport and for Goa. Yeah. And of course, you have recounted some of his laurels, but it goes just completely beyond that. Because a lot of young people in Goa have got inspired to play football because of likes of Brahmanand, Bruno, and all these people. Yeah. And remember, they were stars at a time when football was not on social media, it was not telecast in this kind of a manner. They really had a lot of legion of followers who used to go and watch him. And he's brought laurels not only to the state, but to the country as well. I mean, people all who have grown up in other parts of the country. I did not grow up in Goa, and somebody like me who was a sports follower all the time knew about Brahmanand even in my school days. So it just shows the reach that Brahmanand has across there. So he's a much loved figure, and nobody could have deserved it better.
Okay, this is all that we have for you in this program, the week that was. I thank my guest, Mr. Sujay Gupta, for being on this show and sharing his insights and analysis into the news of the week. See you in another program. Keep watching Herald TV.